Hi everybody, this is BMD, and today I'd like to tell you everything I can about my game mode Reflex. Of all the different game modes currently available to play in Dota, Reflex is probably the least immediately accessible, in that it is both not a Warcraft 3 game mode and also very different from regular Dota. Reflex is a high-speed team deathmatch mode combining action gameplay with strategic round-by-round hero building and counterplay to create a game that is intended to be fun, fair, and provide an environment where skillful play and careful planning prevail over random or uncontrollable events. In every Reflex round, you aim to kill every player on the enemy team before they kill your entire team, using an array of different items and abilities that you buy before starting the round. We're going to go over every single item and ability in detail over the course of this video so that you understand exactly how everything works and combines together, as well as how to counter different playstyles that you may see while playing Reflex. Reflex is all about skill. As you can probably see in the clip being displayed, it's not impossible for people who understand the game well to overcome tremendous odds and succeed. The design philosophy of Reflex is that everything must be dodgeable, and that quick fingers and careful planning should allow people to prevail in the most dire of circumstances and be able to handle just about anything that comes their way if that's the limits of their ability. First, let's look at some important gameplay information, and we can get started on the items and abilities after. Alright, let's look at the details. Reflex is played round by round until one team has 8 wins. Rounds are, won by killing everybody on the other team, or they'll time out if they've been going on for 2.5 minutes. You get a countdown timer, it's pretty obvious. If it times out, the team with the most players alive is the winner, but if both teams have the same number of people alive when it times out, then it goes down to which team has the highest combined HP percentage. Not HP total, but HP percentage. So if your team has 2 guys at 50%, and they've got a guy at 20% and a guy at 90%, then they're going to win, because they have, collectively more HP percentage. There's always a reason to keep fighting at the end there. All heroes in Reflex have exactly the same starting statistics and only differ in model and cosmetics. You can pick whoever you want and play them. You got 1000 HP, 400 mana, no HP regen. There's no healing just by standing around in the game. But you have 100 mana per second regen, so it's more like an energy bar than it is a real mana bar, at least in Dota terms. So you can fire stuff off, but more in like a burst than anything. Everybody moves at 360 by default, and you have a 1.0 turn rate, which, if you don't know, that's Bristleback. It's as fast as people turn in regular Dota, which is pretty fast. It's not League of Legends, but it's pretty fast. No heroes can right-click to attack at all. You have to use the skill shots, you have to use the items, you have to use the abilities. You can't just right-click people. It won't work. So, for abilities and items, in Reflex you start with 500 gold and 2 items. The Reflex Dash, which are the dash boots, and the Simple Shooter, which is kind of your pistol ability. It's, pretty good, but it's not great at many things. It's just a little of a jack-of-all-trades sort of thing. And you also get 6 empty ability slots that you can fill by buying abilities. And there are 4 categories for abilities: Tier 1, 2, 3, and then passives. Tier 1s are active abilities that cost 500 gold to buy, and then you level them up with ability points. Tier 2s cost 1250, Tier 3s cost 2000, and passives cost between 500 and 1250. There are 4 categories of items similarly: Tier 1, 2, 3, and consumables. All items can be upgraded 4 times, just like abilities, but you have to pay for every upgrade. And so Tier 1 costs 750 to buy up front, and then 500 per upgrade. Tier 2 costs 2300 up front and 700 per upgrade, and that's 700 per each upgrade, so total cost is 700 times 3 if you want to get it to level 4. And the Tier 3 items cost 3500 to buy and 1000 per upgrade, so they're the most powerful. And consumables, 200 to 400. They're only one-time use each, there's no upgrading there, there's stock limits, heavy cooldowns, they add spice, they add flavor. Alright. Golden levels. So all heroes start with 500 gold. I already said that. And you can buy items and abilities and skill up between rounds, and only between rounds, not during the round at all. You have to make your decisions before the round starts. That said, all golden abilities points that you don't spend carry over to the next round. So you don't have to worry about not spending them. You just won't maybe have maximized yourself for each round. Each round, winners receive 1.25 ability points and losers receive 2.5 ability points. And this is just a way of kind of helping to make a little bit of a comeback, a little bit of a power curve for people on the losing end. If you're losing, you get more ability points, and so you can get those things up faster. And the winners won't have much of an advantage because both teams receive 1,250 gold per round, and the only advantage they're going to get is if they get more kills than you, which they probably will, but it's only 200 gold per kill. And if your team wins, their team wins very quickly, they'll get a time bonus. But that's it. If you survive and the round times out, then actually you get 250 gold if your team loses. So there's even an advantage to try and play the timer and make it to the end, if that's all you can do. You know, if it's 1 versus 5 and you've lost your last man standing buff, which we'll talk about, maybe you don't have any real shot, but maybe you can just dodge around and stay alive and get yourself a little extra gold. Alright, so let's jump into the game. This is just a local running version of Reflex. I've got a test, it's set up as in a test mode, and so I'm playing this Meepo here, and everything else is a fake client, which I can control and do what I want with. I'm going to use a ton of debug commands and stuff like that you can't use during the game in order to show this stuff off most effectively.
30 seconds to battle.
So this is the pre-round 1. You can see both teams have 0 points. This lasts 60 seconds. Every time after this, it only lasts 30. During this, you get to go in and buy whatever you want. And you start with 500 gold, so you're going to buy abilities, or you're going to buy items. Usually you're going to buy an ability, probably, because, well, you don't have any. So you're going to want to do that in your first round. Every round after this, of course, you get your gold back, you get to spend it, everything else.
The battle
We're counting down now, and I haven't bought anything, so when I hit 0, I'm going to lose my gold. I'll get it back next round, but it doesn't matter. I can't buy anything now anyway. So with the round opened up, you know, we have control and we get to move around and do everything we need to. But before we just start looking into this stuff, I'm going to explain a little bit more about the shop. And so this is where I'm going to start using some debug commands. So I just turned the shop back on, gave myself 50,000 gold. Obviously can't do this in the game. And so there's upgrading. And this is something that I need to emphasize, is how you upgrade your items. Because every single one of these items, except for these over here, these consumables, every single one can be upgraded 4 times. And there's a few ways to get to the upgrades. You can right-click an item you have and say Show in Shop, and that shows it here. And you left-click each of these, and you can see the whole upgrade chain. Same goes up here. If you left-click the item, it comes down here, and again, you can see the whole upgrade chain. You can click and drag it here, and you see the whole upgrade chain. You can shift-click, and it ends up in here, and you can see the whole upgrade chain. There's a bunch of ways, you just gotta find that upgrade chain. If you just spam-click on this, though, it's not gonna upgrade. Yeah, people ask me to do that. I may get around to it, but you have to go into and upgrade the chain to get this, you know, where you need it to be. You can sell items. Normally, you wouldn't be able to buy anything during the round, so it's not really a great idea to sell them during the round, but you can do that. Yeah, I just ran a reset command to put me back here. Anyway, so, yeah, so that's how you upgrade items. Let's just start talking about them. We'll get through this. Everybody starts off with the 2 items, the dash boots and the simple shooter. The dash boots, this is the bread and butter of the game. This is what is kind of the core aspect of the game and what's going on and how, you know, how you're supposed to get around. It's effectively like the force boots from the Nyan game mode from New Bloom. You hit the button, it's a force staff effectively, but you can't force other people, it always forces you. In this case, it's on space. I actually recommend you buying that to something very accessible as well. Because this is incredibly important. They can be used pretty much exactly in sequence, and you can see I get a recharge timer going when I use one. And you see when it timed out, I got my charges back. So these charges are independent. It's called charge type unlinked. The round just timed out. I'll pause it next time, but yeah. So the dash boots are unlinked. That means that each charge is completely unlinked from any other. So you spend one, and 6 seconds later you get that charge back. So if you fire off all of your dashes, and actually I'm gonna upgrade the boots here a few times. But if you spend all your dashes really fast, then you'll get them all back, you know, a little bit down the road. But you can potentially, you know, just spend 1 or 2 and hold a couple in reserve. And then, you know, oh, somebody's coming after me, I can dash up here, but I just got some charges back because I used the other one 6 seconds earlier. Not all things have the same charge type. It's just something you gotta get used to. But these dash boots are really important. They're all about offense, all about defense. They don't use that much energy, 100 per, and you remember that's the exact amount you get per second. So while you do lose a little bit of energy if you're spam charging around, it's not a lot. Generally, if you have charges, you can use them. And this is really important because you can dive in and hit the enemy, dive out. If they shoot at you,
I thought as
do
much.
this. Probably not.
Faster.
Yeah, that's gonna be too hard. Anyway, if they shoot at you, you can easily dodge away or what have you because of the quick turn speed and everything else. So it's very important. There are a few things, though, you have to know that disable the dash. In the abilities, there's a Kinetic Field ability. You can't dash through that, so if you get trapped in that, it's really bad, because, again, dash is the main way to get out of stuff. And then from items, there's a net shooter, which will put a net on you. We'll talk more about that later. And a Crippler, which also will put a debuff on you. And if you're hit by either of those, you cannot dash. And since dashing is how you avoid things, it's incredibly important that you be aware of that stuff. So I always recommend that you upgrade this, early on. You want to probably get to green, which is the second level, Reflex Dash 2. That has 3 charges. It's a ton better than having only 2. And then you want to upgrade as you need it. If people are chasing you down, you probably need more. If you need to chase people down, you probably need more, But you don't always, because there's a lot of items that help you close gaps or cover distances and with the items themselves. The other item you start off with is the Simple Shooter. It's very basic, so you fire it, it's got a 1-second cooldown, you fire it again. It's pretty much very spammable. It does a solid bit of damage, though. 100 damage at level 1, which is respectable when everybody has only 1,000. But you can see it's pretty slow. It's not that hard to avoid unless you dash up on someone and shoot them really quickly. When you upgrade this, it goes from it gains speed, gains a little bit of range, and it gains damage. It's in fact actually a pretty good item to just upgrade because you start with it, and every upgrade is like a tier 1 item, costs 500. So getting just to Simple Shooter 4, which is maxed out, is 1,500 gold, which is not a lot. And now you can see that actually went a decent bit farther than it used to, and it's a little bit faster than it used to be, and most importantly, now there's 160 damage. That's a sizable boost for something that's so spammable. If you're a really good shot and really good at dodging, you can literally go just boots and shooter and absolutely dominate people. I've done it, I've seen other people do it. It's a really good way to practice the fundamentals of aiming and dodging, is to just work on your shooter and dash skills. And then get into the other items. So these are, I guess you could call them tier 0s, they start with them. They upgrade like tier 1s though. This column here, this is for tier 1s. There's Holy Shield, Shotgun, Long Shot, and Air Burst. Holy Shield is an item that allows you to both buff yourself and buff your allies and give you a damage reduction between 50 and 80%, which is a pretty serious amount of damage reduced. It lasts 4 to 5.5 seconds, depending on how high the level is, and it's got a range boost as it goes along, as well as a cooldown reduction. So when you fire this, it always goes on you. It doesn't matter which direction you fire it, it always goes on you, no issue at all. So it doesn't do anything to enemies. But, you see, when I shoot it through my allies, they get the buff. So you can use this to protect your friends, to organize, offensive actions by buffing yourself and then charging in so you take a lot less damage. There's a lot of useful things you can do with this, and it's very good comboed with certain all-in items like Detonator, things where you have to get close, or things where you have to stand still, because you can actually tank some of the punishment, whereas most of the time you need to be dodging in order to not take the punishment. It's pretty good when you upgrade it. It gets a lot more range on it, good bit more damage reduction, and a lot boost of a big boost on duration. It's really a solid item for pretty cheap, but it's entirely defensive. So if that's all you get, it's going to be hard to take people down. The shotgun. This is, as you might expect, short range, 2 charges, kind of a double barrel thing going on there. And this is type all, charge type all. That indicates that, if say I have this charge going, it's a 6-second recharge, and when it recharges, I get all of my charges back. So there's no reason not to spend both charges effectively before it comes back up. And then when it comes back up, I get both back. So, yeah, you want to drop them both usually. So shotgun is close range but high damage. It starts off at 160 and goes up to 250 damage level 4. It's got a little bit of a cone on it, you know, just shotgun style. And the distance actually goes up as you upgrade it. It's a very, very solid close quarters item. But again, it's close quarters. So you have to be able to, you know, get in people's faces and not get destroyed by whatever they have. Now, on the opposite end, we have the long shot. Long shot shoots this, and, you know, it doesn't do that much damage. 75 up to 150. 150 is pretty solid, but 75 is not a ton of damage. And the range is between 2,000 and 3,000, which is pretty long. So early on, you can use this to potentially get some range on people and really deal with them. But the range goes pretty far once you get it leveled up. You can also spam it out pretty well, like that. And you can see that this recharges 1 charge every 2 seconds. The recharge type is full, which means that if my cooldown recharge is going, when I fire it off, then it restarts the cooldown timer. So you usually either want to spam all of this out or wait for it to come back. It's not as good for just, you know, just shooting one and then moving on and then shooting another, because you still lose the charges at the same rate and you don't get them back faster. Well, again, you just got to get the feel for it usually. So long shot, it's pretty solid because you can spam it out, but it has a cast point, so you can, you know, you have to stop in order to do it, which can put you at risk. But it's a very solid item. If people go long shots against you and you try and fight them from range or without doing much damage or getting in their face, you're going to take a ton of damage. Like, I can just stand here and I can just, you know, pepper this, and I killed somebody. You know, it does a lot of damage from range if people don't, you know, come up and stop you. You really got to watch out for that. But it's a tier 1 item. It's pretty cheap, pretty easy to get. Air Burst, this item, honestly, is pretty crappy, so I'm not going to spend much time on it. All it does, there's no damage, it doesn't do anything except when you hit it, creates an AoE, knocks people way away from you. It's sort of supposed to be for preventing people rushing you down, but it doesn't even do a very good job of that. Right now, I gotta work this thing out. It's not a great item. I don't really recommend using it. The one thing it has going for it is that knockback actually interrupts channels, whereas most of the knockbacks, like the long shot has a knockback. It's not gonna show it, but you can see there's a little bit of a knockback there. That doesn't interrupt channels like Meteor Cannon, like Detonator, so it's fine. But the Air Burst actually does interrupt them. So you can use Air Burst to, say, stop somebody detonating in front of you, and it will prevent them from detonating anywhere, which is pretty good. But yeah, Air Burst, not really great item, maybe situational. Alright, tier 2 stuff. So this is where you start getting into more interesting, like, that's all very basic stuff. Shield, close range, long range. This is where you start getting into some very interesting things. Wall of Pain allows you to drop effectively a Dark Seer wall that snares people who are in it and does damage. And the damage is pretty substantial when they get stuck in it. It lasts for 6 to 9 seconds, and the width goes up as you level it. As well, you also get more charges. When you hit level 3, it goes from 1 charge to 2 charges. And the damage goes fairly highly up as well. And with 2 charges and being able to throw 2 of those out at a huge width, it's an incredible area denial item. So, you know, I can throw these down like this, and it just does an absurd amount of damage, really. And, you know, you can try and dash through it, and it will work, but, you know, you're going to take some damage doing it. So it's pretty solid. It's a pretty solid item. It just... they don't start taking damage for half a second, so if I throw it on this guy, you can see he was snared for a little bit, but he wasn't actually taking any damage for a little bit. So there's no instantaneous damage that comes out of this item, and that's good, because one of the things about Reflex I like to do is everything should be dodgeable. Basically everything should be dodgeable. I want people to be able to handle stuff that way. so no instant damage effectively from that. Blast Cannon, this is like the shotgun's big brother. It shoots out, yeah, a deafening blast, good knockback on it, good damage. The max charges goes up as you level it. The damage doesn't go up that much, but if you get this to level 4, it's got 3 charges on it, so you can really, you know, do a lot of damage to people. And of course it's AoE, so I could have, you know, slaughtered people there pretty easily as well. This is a pretty strong close quarters item, as you might expect. It's like the shotgun, but basically better. So the Detonator. So this is a channel, and when you finish, it erupts, and it does usually a lot of damage. At level 1, it's actually pretty crappy. Only 400 damage. It takes like a second and a half or something, or it takes like, yeah, 2 full seconds to get off. But when you get this to level 4, it's pretty brutal. Larger AoE, faster charge, much higher damage, 1,000 damage. It's basically spammable too, in 3 seconds. The thing about this that, you know, tries to balance it out is that, the way to, is that you can't move while doing it. You move, it cancels, and if you get knocked back by a heavy knockback like Cogs or like Airburst, it does cancel. And realistically, you can always dash. If you dash away, you're fine. This item is really good though if you use it from high ground. Let me get it on this. Oh, wait, it's not gonna work. So you can use this from high ground, and people won't be able to see the. They won't be able to see this indicator unless they have vision, and then you can destroy people that way. So if people are chasing you up one of these high ground areas, you can stop and detonate. If they chase you all the way up, they're gonna get absolutely ruined. So it's really dangerous to chase people uphill when they have a detonator. But yeah, it's pretty powerful, and it combos pretty well with like Net Shooter or Crippler. So if you hit somebody with a Net Shooter, hit someone with a Crippler, and they can't dash away, and you detonate on them, it's very powerful. The one thing is that just about anything that has this danger indicator here, the green, which actually you can see here, it's going to be red when the enemy does it. If you anything that shows like that is really, it's primed for borrowed time. I'm just going to show that real quick. Borrowed time, it's a tier 3 ability, so it costs 2,000. It's pretty powerful. Alright, well, I didn't time that well, but it's a little bit tougher in this situation. But yeah, if you time it right, then in fact you would heal back all of that HP instead, which is great, because there really are not many ways to heal it. It can absolutely turn a fight to be able to do that. Alright, so Sunstrike Barrage. This item lets you drop Sunstrikes anywhere on the map. Again, you can see the danger indicator is green for me, and when the enemy does it, it'll look red. So this starts off doing 320 damage, not a lot of damage, only 2 charges, and a pretty small radius. But when you max it out, it's pretty terrifying. It really is a barrage. Huge AoE, ton of charges, and pretty good damage, 410 per. Again, everybody sees these danger indicators. You can dash away from it pretty easily. This has an all charge type, so you can see I got all 5 charges back there at the end. So you can just let loose all of them without really feeling any issue with doing that. It's a good item. It combos well again with stuff like Net Shooter and things like that, because they can hold them in place so they can't dash away. Meteor Cannon. This one, you charge it up and it fires a meteor. The longer you charge, the faster the meteor goes. So that was a max charge at level 1. Whereas if I just tap it, the meteor barely runs at all. It also, if you charge it up at least 1.5 seconds, then it does full damage, and otherwise it does a % between the minimum damage here and the maximum damage, which is between basically 190 and 380, or 250 and 500 at max level. So this one, it gets a good bit faster when you level it up. It also does more damage. The AoE when the meteor hits is quite a bit affects quite a bit farther. So yeah, I can hit all those guys.
May it please you.
This is this is like the Sunstrike Barrage, is a pretty great long-range weapon. As you can see, it basically travels the entire length of the map without issue. So if you've got people who are dogfighting or you know, fighting up close with people, you can just fire that off from afar and really just barrel into them. Similar for the long shot in Sunstrike Barrage. Net Shooter. This item, you got 2 charges, and it allows you to root people in place so that they can't dash at all. And while they can't dash, of course, you can capitalize on that. The net is actually AoE, so if I shoot it here, both of these are going to get netted. That AoE gets a bit larger as you upgrade it, but also the duration gets upgraded from 1.2 seconds to 2.1. It's a pretty decent upgrade. And of course this is nice and ranged, so you can use it from afar pretty easily. The next one is Crippler. This is a much closer ranged ability. Looks like Venom Gale. This one actually does some damage, unlike the Net Cannon, but it does 2.5 second snare, and they can't dash while using it. So you move slower and you can't dash. It really sets up a lot of big damaging things like, say, Detonator. So I can't dash here, I can't get away, you're gonna get wrecked if you don't have any way to save yourself. Upgrading this is actually one of the better items to keep at level 1 because 2.5 seconds is pretty long, but it does do more damage and get up to 4 seconds of snare at level 4. So the Howler. Now we're in the tier 3s. The Howler creates these wolves. It shows, indicating whose wolves they are. When it goes off, it basically fires an illuminate that goes after whoever. Or it doesn't go after him. It goes just in a straight line. When you max it out, the big thing is that the channel time of the spirit of the wolves goes down. So this is only 2.5 seconds channel time. At level 1, it's 4. But also, you get 4 whole charges that you can drop. So you can put out a ton of wolves, mana willing. And it's a very powerful item because you can drop it and keep going. You can, if somebody's chasing you, you can place it so that it's going to aim towards you, and then they have to either fight through it or they have to back off. It's just got a lot of versatility to it, but it's expensive. It's a tier 3 item. Mega Flare is another tier 3 item. This effectively drops a delayed Skywrath ulti. You can see where it's going to show up, and then there it is. It does 600 damage at level 1. It's got a very low cooldown. You can practically spam this out. The main thing is that it costs a ton of mana, kind of like Skywrath's ulti. 400, so without any upgrades, that's exactly your entire mana pool. So I can't dash in and then use this. It takes, a whole second extra to come up. Upgrading this gives you more damage, and lower delay on it. But more importantly, the AoE becomes absolutely enormous, and it becomes really hard to avoid. And with it being spammable, it's a very potent ability. So, but yeah, it's tier 3, so that kind of makes sense. Alright, we got these. These are just point boosters. There's HP, mana, and mana regeneration rates so that you can tank up a bit. You can get more energy to help you spam stuff out, like long shots, Howler, what have you. Energy regen to allow you to be more, dynamic and not get bogged down with various things. And a soul booster, which of course combines them all together. So you can buy them individually. If you buy all 3, you get a soul booster. You can see here in the upgrade path, you can take the whole thing pretty easily. And you can't have multiple soul boosters. Oh wait, yes you can. Sorry. No, you can't have multiple individual HP boosters. That's what. You can have multiple soul boosters. So if you absolutely want to, you can buy nothing but soul boosters and keep your base items and abilities just to help you tank up. It's kind of effective, but it does mean you're not going to be playing a single style, which might be easier for people to counter. Yeah, so then we have consumables. There's the Smoke Grenade, which invises you and your entire team for 4 seconds. This is actually very useful with certain abilities and items. So if you have a smoke grenade, I'm gonna refresh this.
If you say so.
If you have a smoke grenade and something like, say, a Crippler,
Yep.
Here I come.
you can be out of vision and invis yourself, get right up next to somebody, and cripple them. And, you know, with a long cripple on them, that can just be the end of somebody right there, so it's pretty potent. There's also, like, the Flame Sword ability, which you can be charging while you're invis and walking around. You can't, however, you can't dash or do anything, it will break the invis. So you have to be very cognizant of it. But, yeah, long cooldown, you can't use it, usually, you can't really use it more than once around at all. And there's a restock time, I might take that away. Haste Grenade, same deal, AoE haste for your team. It lasts a good while, it's useful for, you know,
Hey, why not?
helping your team out of certain situations. The haste will override the snare from the Wall of Pain or the snare from the Crippler. So you can use it to potentially save somebody in that way. Wormhole is basically an instantaneous blink. Anywhere on the map, wherever you want to go, as long as you have 150 mana, you can blink there. And
Like that
this is... It's a get out of jail free card if you save one, if you have one on you. It's got a 300-second cooldown, so you can only use it once every couple of rounds. But if you get trapped in a kinetic field, if you get caught up with a Crippler or Net Cannon, there's nobody to help you and you can't fight your way out, you can use it to just get the hell out. Just use it, click somebody, you're gone. You can also use it potentially offensively. If people aren't expecting you to be able to do that, you can, you know, instantly wormhole to like somewhere here. Maybe you get by a detonator and then at the beginning of the round wormhole to this place and then just detonate because they can't see you or they won't likely expect you to be there already. So it has some offensive and defensive purposes. It's 400 gold and that's gone when you use it, and of course long cooldown. But yeah, it's a very unique way to save yourself mostly. Alright, had to cut there for an issue, but we're back now, so let's talk about abilities. We can start here with, we'll just grab all these abilities. Pull them up initially. Okay, so first we've got Charge. Charge, it basically lets you move really, really fast for a short period of time. But while doing that, you can't turn very fast at all, and in a second I'll show you that. Level 1 only is a 1 second duration. You can get that up to 2.5, which, you know, of course, lets you go much farther. But yeah, if I try and do this, if I try and turn, you can see I just get stuck. You can't turn really well at all. So you're pretty much stuck going forward when you charge. But this combos really well with stuff like Flame Sword, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But other things like close range abilities, because you can charge in and hit people with them. Charging doesn't prevent you from dashing, although dashing just doesn't really do anything because charge moves you faster than that. It fixes your movement speed at 1,000, so if you're snared by Wall of Pain or Crippler, then you'll charge right out of it. However, if you get hit by a Crippler or, you know, a Net Cannon or anything like that while charging, you will in fact stop charging. It's also possible to steal this buff. One thing I forgot to mention with Holy Shield earlier, you can actually steal that when we get to Magnetic Orb ability. And if it's stolen, they of course get it and you stop charging. Next we got Power Cogs. These are very similar to, you know, Clockwork's Cogs from the main game. They drain mana and deal HP damage to people who bounce off of them. It still says attacks required on there, but there's no way to attack them because you can't right-click. So this means, you know, when you drop them yourself, the only way to get out is to dash, you know? But if you cog somebody else in there and they dash out, then they're going to get hit by the cogs just like force staffing in general. And cogs, it's 200 HP in mana regen, and the mana is a serious amount when people only have 400. If you combine that with something like Energy Drain, which is another ability we'll get to, you can really knock somebody's mana down far and put them in a really crappy position. But otherwise, Power Cogs, there's no way around it. They can't dash over it, they can't charge through it, they can't do anything. It's a great anti-rushdown. It's a great anti-rushdown thing because you drop it going up high ground, drop it just when people are coming after you. They have to go around it. The only way they could get over it is they want to blow a whole wormhole to jump past it, which is kind of ridiculous. while we're in the middle of this round, let's just say, you can see over here, these tips show up at the beginning of every round. You can type dash tip, and it'll show you another one. So actually, this is a good one. Last man standing is what happens when you kill everybody except one person. When there's only one person left, which we can just do really quickly here. When there's one person left on the enemy team, they get a buff called last man standing, or when onto your team. And what it's going to be is it does a ton more damage. You get this effect, and while you have last man standing, you can see this is normally supposed to do 100 damage, but it's actually hitting me for 225 damage because of the bonus. And this lasts 20 seconds. You can't steal this buff, you can't remove it from in any way. It's incredibly powerful. So you may end up as the last person standing, but if you make good use of that buff, you can actually do some incredible work with it. And yeah, it's just very, very, very potent. So make use of that. But yeah, there's other tips you can see. Smoke Grenade with Flame Sword and Crippler, as I kind of showed you earlier. Alright, so Power Shot. So these are all tier 1 abilities. You can buy them in the very first round if you want, though you can only have them at level 1. Power Shot is very much like the standard Dota one. It's got a decent speed on it, though the speed goes up as you level it. And it does, a decent amount of damage. 100, same as your simple shooter, but a longer range, and it goes up to 240, which is pretty solid. So this is a pretty useful long-range ability. You can actually really do some good damage if you get levels in this and can aim it well. Just like with Power Shot, you can cancel it early to fire it, and it'll still do a percentage of the damage. For full damage, you need to charge it up. One thing people don't realize is that Power Shot gives vision. So if you don't have any means of getting vision of, say, this area, you can just quickly tap it and fire it, and there you go. You got vision for a little bit. That's very, very useful because high ground is incredibly dangerous at many points in the game, let alone when people do stuff like try and get sneaky with detonators. Keeping vision is very important, and that leads us right into the next ability, which is Flare. So unlike regular Clockwork Flare, which is effectively what this is, this does no damage. There's no way for this to do any damage to anybody. All it does is give you vision. But like I said, vision is very important. So keeping the high ground vision is just crazy important. So level 1, you can see it doesn't give you a big area there, but that lets you get one of these tower mountains here and see the whole thing. Whereas maxed out, it's a crazy amount of vision. You can keep a ton of vision, and you never have to worry about where people are or fighting at a disadvantage from vision. That said, somebody has to buy it, somebody has to put points into it, and it doesn't give you any offensive, damage-wise capabilities. Flame Sword. So this is, a complicated ability. What it is you charge it up by hitting it once to toggle, and then you get this Mask of Madness effect. While you are using this, while you're charging up, you can't dash. You just get an error. Can't dash. It's bad. And that's your main way to dodge stuff, so you gotta be careful with this. But when you release it, you get a little bit, a Flame Sword swing there, and then it shoots this Wildfire out. If you don't charge it up much, the Wildfire doesn't go very far, but it still does the same amount of damage in the fire. The charge time, if you charge it a full charge, which is 3 seconds, I'm gonna shut up so you can hear that, because at 3 seconds you hear a chime. Just like that. That means there's no point in charging this up any farther. Try and make it land. So you can release it and let the Wildfire do damage to people who get stuck in it. At level 1, the Wildfire does not do that much damage, but it does a ton of damage at level 4. 150 DPS. It's a lot. But if you hit somebody up close with this, you knock them away, and it does a good bit of damage. Very good bit of damage, especially for level 1. But of course, you have to get close, and you can't dash up to people to do it. So you have to be wary of that. When you level it up, you can see I get a little bit of a movement speed bonus now while I'm charging it to help out with not being able to. But I can not being able to dash, but I can charge up on people a bit easier now, and you can see it does even more damage. And if you stand in the fire, it's a really, really heavy burn. So one thing you can do, even though you can't dash while charging this up, you can combo it pretty easily with something like charge. Charge in, smack somebody. It's a very potent combination. a little bit tough to counter. Cogs, good dashes and stuff like that. Remember, the charge doesn't let you turn very well, so if you dash like through somebody as they do that, it works well. But this is a very potent ability. It just takes a little bit of getting used to. Next we got Spirit Orbs. This is basically Wisp Orbs that come out. You get 5 of them, but it's at a fixed distance from you. You can't change the distance at all like you can with Wisp, and you can't do anything with them. But they hit people, they burst. It's very, very similar to what you would expect from playing Wisp in the game. So early on it costs a lot of mana to use these, and they don't last all that long, but when you level it up, they actually can do a lot of damage. It's 100 damage per Wisp ball that hits people, and considering they just fly around you, it provides a really decent cover from people who want to fight, who want to dogfight you, because you can get a lot of extra damage in that way. So it's a pretty good ability. So let's try some other ones. So that's all of the tier 1 of actives. Let's do tier 2s now. So here we go, tier 2 actives. We've got Phase Shift, which is just like Puck Phase Shift. You can use it to dodge, any kind of projectiles, what have you, but it does leave you in place. One thing you have to worry about with Phase Shift is that if you just Phase Shift, people can easily capitalize on that by waiting for you to come out and then hitting you. So usually when you Phase Shift, you're going to want to always dash out of it, just about always. At level 1, it only lasts half a second, which is pretty tough to dodge stuff, but when you level it up, it goes up and lasts now 2 seconds and has only a 4.5 second cooldown. This is if you're really good at dodging stuff and dogfighting with people, dashing around, dodging a bit, dashing away. This gives you so much potential for really, really strong plays, but it just takes a lot of, just like Puck, it takes a lot of skill to use it effectively. Breathe Fire is another tier 2 ability. This is technically the highest damaging spell in the entire game, but it's also one of the most cumbersome to use. When you use it, you shoot out this fire breath, it channels, and you can't move, and it channels in a swath in front of you. But it does good damage. You can easily get punished for it, and it only hits in front of you. Level 1 doesn't do a ton of damage, but it's not that bad, whereas at level 4, you're probably going to see these people just melt. So yeah, pretty huge amount of damage. And so that's the kind of thing I was talking about, where if you combo it with like a Holy Shield, so you can actually withstand some of the pressure, then you can get a lot of that out. You can also use it from high ground and hit people on the low ground, and they might not even be able to see Breathing Fire. So it has a lot of potency, but it's pretty easy to dodge past you, away from you, punish you because you're standing still. There's a lot of things people can do against that. Energy Drain is the next ability. This creates a field that actually drains people's energy, at level 1 it's pretty bad. Small AoE, only 30 mana per second drained, whereas at level 4, huge AoE, and it drains 90 per second. Now remember, you only start with 100, so that just dramatically removes people's ability to do things in that area. So this is area denial. Like, you can't fight in this with any real you just can't. You won't be able to sustain the mana cost of dashing around and using your items and abilities. It's just not possible. So area denial, phenomenal for that. Next we've got Magnetic Orb, final tier 2 ability. This is a dual purpose item that does different things depending on whether you shoot it at allies or shoot it at adversaries. So when I shoot it at this Darkseer, you can see it made this little lightning effect. What it's trying to do there is steal any of his buffs that he's got. The buffs that he can have that I can steal are Holy Shield, Charge, Vengeance, and Scaredy Cat, both of which I haven't shown you yet. But it takes them away from him and gives them to me. So let's see. So I've given him a bunch of buffs now. I shoot them at him, now I've got them. Scaredy Cat, Vengeance, Scaredy Cat, and Holy Shield. He's got nothing. So this is for people who go heavy into these kind of buffs. You can steal it right off of them and destroy them with their own effects. It's very potent for that. Magnetic Orb also allows you to grab your allies. So if you hit an ally with it, it kind of Earth Spirit pulls them in. It kind of Earth Spirit pulls them to you. This will pull people through Kinetic Field, out of Crippler. It's basically the closest thing to, you know, a support ability in the entire game, because it allows you to actually save your team. But it also has an effect where any enemies that are near the person you grip are going to get pulled in towards the person who got hit. They're going to take some damage, and they're going to get snared for some duration. So it's pretty potent if you can line stuff up right. It also combos interestingly with things like Detonator and Meteor. So you can do stuff like, let's see if I can pull this off. Yeah, so you can pull people in as they're detonating, and it'll go off where you pull them in. It's a neat trick. It's very hard to pull off, but it technically is one of the ways you can make Detonator more mobile. There's a lot of stuff you can do with a Magnetic Orb, but does no damage to people, and so, you know, it's got a very specific uses that people don't often take advantage of. So, all right, tier 3 abilities. We've got Borrowed Time and Kinetic Field. These are pretty similar to their basic counterparts in Dota. You've got Kinetic Field, which prevents people from dashing, prevents people from moving. So once you're inside, you can't get out. Once you're outside, you can't get in. But of course, I can walk through it, and so can my team. You can't dash out of it, and it really sets up things like Mega Flare, Howlers, any of those big area spells. So it's a very, very potent skill. Leveling this up reduces the formation time and increases the radius and duration that it exists. It's just crazy potent as a setup skill. Then we've got Borrowed Time. This is a very long cooldown, between 40 and 25 seconds, but when you use it, you know, you can steal back HP from things like Sunstrike, anything, but stuff like Sunstrike, Mega Flare, Howler, where you can clearly see them coming in. You can actually hit Borrowed Time and then jump into it and get a whole bunch of HP back that way. So it's incredibly powerful, but even at this maxed out, still 25-second cooldown, so you're very vulnerable while it's down if that's what you're relying on to keep yourself going. Next, and we're almost done here, we got passives. So, and passives obviously maybe not as exciting as others, but they're very, very potent. We've got Bristleback, which is just like Bristlebacks in game, except there's no quill spray. If you hit on the side or the back, you take a lot less damage. You know, this is potentially useful for just building a more tanky hero. The health boost ability, which just gives you a lot of HP to work with. Especially for new players, I recommend getting this or Bulk Up, which is kind of a combination health, energy, and energy regen bonus, because it makes you so much harder to deal with. It takes a lot longer to bring you down. Energy boost, same deal. You get a bunch of mana, more mana to spend. Energy regen, you can, especially if people are going energy drain, this is almost necessary in order to fight hard in it. And Bulk Up gives you a combination of all three of those, but less potent than each one of those. And it costs $12.50 compared to the $500 for all these other passives. Finally, we've got Vengeance and Scaredy Cat. These two are what are called on-death effects. So Vengeance and Scaredy Cat only go into effect. They do absolutely nothing until one of the allies on your team dies. If somebody on your team dies and you have Vengeance, then you get a buff that gives you a damage reduction for a lot of time. And at level 4, that's a 90% damage reduction. You basically take nothing, and you can just steamroll through people because somebody on your team died. Scaredy Cat, it's kind of similar, but when somebody dies in your team, you get a movement speed bonus and a healing salve effect that gets cancelled if you take damage. And this is, besides Borrowed Time, the only other way in the entire game to heal. So these two abilities combined are very, very potent when your team is feeding. Unlike regular Dota, if in regular Dota your team is bad or they're feeding, you've got no recourse. You've got to put it all on your shoulders and do some insane work. Here, if they're going to die, you can use that to your advantage by getting Vengeance to let you just roll into people, or Scaredy Cat to let you, you know, get some of that HP back and make you more mobile. Okay, I had to cut again, but that's alright. This is the last segment. We'll be done here real quick. So we talked about all the abilities, all the items now. So I'm just going to show you a couple of quick things. I already showed you that you can type -tip and see the tips that show up. I'm going to try and add more of these and whatnot, but it's a pretty good thing for just, you know, seeing and getting a little bit of a refresher. There's also -damage, which shows you the total amount of damage you've done, as well as the last round, how much you did during that round. And you can type -dmg space all to get everything. It doesn't work in here with all the fake clients, but that's okay. It will show you everybody in your team's damage during the game. And then finally there's -swap, and so I can do this swap 2 and 6. That's, you know, number 2 slot here. I want to move it there. So if I type this, now borrow times on a R, which, you know, if you play Abaddon, maybe you're more comfortable with that. Maybe you want phase shift on E and stuff like that. So you can swap these around on your bar however you like, and everything should work out. And that's it. That's basically it. I know this is long, so if you stuck through it, then, you know, hopefully you learned something. There's a lot of stuff in this game, and it's all got a purpose except maybe airburst, and I hope that you can kind of understand why things exist, how to, you know, make your best use of them, how to just, in general, kind of get a feel for how the game is to be played. Realistically, the best way is just to give it a shot. So, you know, yeah, try it out and let me know if you have feedback or whatever. I'm certainly going to keep trying to make this game as good as it can be, and I think people will enjoy it, or already do. So yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for watching. Hope you're still alive out there.